again, want to shoot our Twitter across to you guys for, sending us questions, looking at our rankings. We've been, pushing that pretty hard recently. So it's at official Cap City. That is our Twitter handle. You guys can find us there. Without further ado, let's get into things. Today we're talking about Michigan.
Boo! Topic all of you have been.
Yeah, it's all over the news. Obviously, I'm sure you've already heard. But in case you live under a rock, or you live in that state up north and don't have a TV, and you're backwards in your culture, they were caught stealing signs, allegedly, of course. Allegedly caught stealing signs.
Speculation.
From at this point up to 17 different. In 17 stadiums at 35 separate games around the country. We don't know the extent of it. We don't know how many teams were involved. We know that they had bought tickets to at least 8 Ohio State games, so that was probably why
this season.
Yeah, that was this season alone.
This season alone.
Yes. It runs deep. But essentially the gist of it is there is a there is a Wolverine staffer that goes by the name of Connor Stalions. I believe that is his real name. It doesn't sound like it, but it could be a pseudonym. Who knows?
Maybe he's an alien.
But he has been purchasing tickets to all kinds of games against Big Ten teams, against non-Big Ten teams. I think he purchased tickets to Georgia. Who was the SEC championship game last year? Georgia. LSU. Thank you. Yes. And news came out a couple days ago that he actually was helping other teams as well steal signs. South Carolina and Tennessee, I believe, were the two, because he was helping them to beat someone last year. Georgia.
Quick fun fact, really quick, as we're kind of on the topic. The only 2 games that Michigan has lost in the last 2 seasons were games they weren't able to pre-scout.
That's true.
Before the matchup, which were TCU and Georgia.
Yeah.
The only 2 games they've lost in the last 2 seasons. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and now the way that it was supposedly going down, again, allegedly, it's mostly confirmed, but allegedly.
Speculation!
He was purchasing tickets on the opposite end of the sideline from where the coaches stand. So, the coaches have guys that are there giving signals, doing signs. I think 2 of them are usually like fake signs, and there's one guy that's doing the real thing. There is video evidence. Ohio State has given it at this point, we assume, because the game that they have given, for example, is an Ohio State game. Video evidence of someone sitting in his seats, holding an iPhone the entire game, recording the bench and the sideline where the sign guys are. Again, allegedly, we don't know exactly what it is.
Speculation.
We don't know the extent of it. We don't have all of the evidence yet because they're still collecting that. Actually, as we record this podcast, there was news today that the FBI was there. I don't know if you guys saw that. So it seems to run deeper than just sign stealing. Because sign stealing isn't illegal; it's against NCAA standards. But the speculation at the moment is that there was some sort of computer hack, and that was why a Michigan staffer
fired the coach.
Defensive coordinator was let go.
They fired the coach. No, it was in January. It was this year, January or February. I think that's why the FBI was there. Was more so for that than it was for anything else.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people assumed it was for that he got fired for other reasons, but now that this is all coming out, they're wondering if it's directly correlated. The other thing too is everybody's been forthcoming. Everybody's kind of just releasing all this information across the country. It's not just Big Ten. It's everyone. Everyone is just giving all the information.
Well, like I said, the South Carolina and Tennessee, that came from both of those schools.
Yep.
It's literally everywhere.
I think everybody just wants to get Michigan out of the picture this year.
At this point, it's more of holy crap, what's the news going to be today? Who knows? Because every day you wake up and there's some new bombshell with the case that you're like, that can't be true, right? And then you look it up and you're like, oh man, that's credible. Obviously, there was the fake video of Jim Harbaugh admitting to it, and that was hilarious, and it was scarily real because it was AI generated, I guess. But it's bombshell after bombshell every single day.
There's been a lot of interesting content, and it's not even at this point at first when we first started hearing about it, it was on I think, was it Pete Thamel was the one that first started
I think
reporting
he
it,
was
and
the
he
one that
was,
broke it, but it was on Twitter, I believe, because that's where he does most of
but
his
he was on
Sorry,
the
Nate X.
But he was on the Pat McAfee show before the Ohio State Penn State game talking about it.
Yeah, but that was after the news had already came out.
Right,
That
the night
was,
before.
He was the one that I believe broke the news. So that Pat McAfee show was where he was saying,
Right.
like, hey, this is why it's credible. This is, some more information on it.
It just started gaining traction at that point, and people were like, "Oh well, there's a lot of Ohio State people there."
Right before
probably
the
just-
Michigan State game.
But it's blown up, and it's like it's completely like it's not just in this bubble of Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, it's national, and obviously with the FBI, the NCAA, the Big Ten, there's a ton of entities involved in here. Punishment could be handed out by any number of them, so we really don't even have a good measuring stick. I mean, this kind of situation with how it's playing out is kind of unprecedented. I don't think we've
There's
really
nothing
seen
even
anything
close to the
it.
scope of this.
As
now,
far as violating
yes.
what they violated.
Now, as far as that punishment goes, that was something I wanted to get into. We don't know how long it's going to take. The NCAA is notorious for slow as crap investigations. I forget the burger gate, for lack of a better term, the thing during COVID where Jim Harbaugh was buying burgers for recruits. That's still at this point unresolved.
Yeah.
Because they haven't decided a punishment for him. Obviously, he did the self imposed
self-imposed
3-game ban
three-game.
or whatever. But yeah, like we're past a year at this point. I think we're about a year and a half into it, and still nothing has come
right.
forward.
I don't know what you think, Gage, and I'll give you a second to talk here. I think because of how much information has come out so quickly, I think we may get to a verdict by the off season at the latest, and I would hope that because of how much it's affected the last 2 years. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's gonna be hard because in general, we're seeing new reports, we're seeing new stuff every day come out. But the reality is we don't fully know what's real yet. We don't fully know the extent. Now, at this point, obviously, there's enough smoke to where, okay, something nefarious went down. There was some kind of system going on to steal science. I think that's we know that by this point, but how deep it goes and how complex the system is and all that and how deep it is, we don't know the full extent of that yet. So a lot of what we're saying and doing is hearsay at the moment.
Right.
Now, if there is validity to the reports that we've been getting, there's too much information coming out about this, I think, for the NCAA to not do something soon. If the FBI is, confiscating computers and that kind of stuff, I think you are doing the teams on Michigan's schedule a disservice to not make a decision quickly. Biasly, we play them in a month, so it's like us being Ohio State fans.
I think most Ohio State fans will say that we still want to play Michigan.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think anyone wants to back out of the game.
Absolutely not. But it is
Redemption.
there is something to be said for if there is ramifications for Michigan's season, whether it be the postseason or not. That's something that we kind of need to know. If this is something that was going on this season, which every indication would be if it has been going on in general, it would have been starting out this season as well. So if that's true, then, and it's true, then they should be banned from postseason play before we get to postseason play, which that's kind of around the corner. That's 6 weeks away.
Yeah, we're not far off at this point.
So I think it'd be a disservice to have this information and just sit on it. I'm hopeful they can come up with something soon. I'm not very confident in that. I do think they're going to inevitably kind of sit on it till the off season. They'll put some postseason bans on them, maybe. I think Harbaugh is going to go to the NFL anyways and not stay for the whatever punishment comes to Michigan.
Right.
So I would love to say I think this gets resolved soon, but I don't actually have faith that that will happen.
I don't think it will for the NCAA. I think the Big Ten will jump in and say, hey, with all this going on, you're not playing in the conference championship game, and we are going to suggest that you don't play in the playoffs or any bowl game for that matter. I think that's very possible.
Yeah. I think what is also slightly interesting, and I don't know that they would self-impose, and when I say self-impose, is the university enacting punishment on Harbaugh or the coaching staff or the team in general. Because I would like to say that they don't want to put this on the players, and I don't really think that it's. I mean, maybe the players knew about it, but it wasn't on them. We know the AD doesn't really like Harbaugh, and I'm pretty sure that there's like a really high up, either someone in the boosters who doesn't like him either.
Yeah. So the rumor, again, this is unconfirmed. The rumor going
Speculation.
The rumor going around right now is that there is a boosters member for the University of Michigan that had an investigation going for, it was something else, some sort of financial thing. So he hired an outside firm to look into it, and that firm came across the sign stealing stuff. And they're like, holy crap, this is deep. We got to look into this. And through that, that's because at this point, from what we're hearing, the investigation from that outside firm is complete, and that's where all this came from. Is, hey, this is done. Here's all the evidence we have. And then the NCAA stepped in and said, okay, we're going to start confiscating things. Anyways, that booster guy that is not a fan of Harbaugh at all is also a partial owner of the Vikings, which is probably why he didn't get the job for the Vikings this offseason. But yeah, no, he is not a fan of Harbaugh whatsoever. He has made that very publicly well known. I don't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but
I don't either.
You can Google it. I'm sure it'll be the first thing that pops up.
I just find that information interesting because I mean we could see punishment imposed by the university, by the Big Ten, by the NCAA, and at this point, obviously we talked about the FBI being on site in Ann Arbor 2 days ago, I believe. We don't know how much this directly correlates with the sign stealing and this incident in particular, or if it's more so associated with the firing of the coach back in February, and if it's just linked to that. Either way, there's a lot of different directions that the punishment could come from if it ends up being imposed on them. Will it happen this season? Unlikely, but we never know. Like we said, this is an unprecedented situation, and I feel like the punishment's going to be unprecedented. So I don't really have much to predict there.
The other side of it too is at this point, we definitely don't know anything, and I don't know if anyone knows if there's any evidence that points to the fact that like Harbaugh was encouraging this or even knew about it. Now, a lot of coaches have came out. Kirby Smart's talked about it. I know James Franklin's talked about it. A lot of coaches have said, yeah, there's no way he didn't know about this kind of stuff. And a low-level staffer that makes $50,000 a year isn't standing next to a head coach in any other situation other than, whispering sweet nothings into his ear.
Right. There had to be a significant budget for it, too. Like,
that was the other thing.
The tickets in those locations where they're recording are good tickets at every stadium they're going to for 3 state seasons, and for it to be multiple people each game with the flights and food and housing. So
the first thing that came out was, hey, this guy only makes $50,000 a year. The tickets. When it came out, it was right before the OSU Penn State game. The tickets that he had bought for the OSU Penn State game, which no one attended, by the way, understandably so. Those tickets alone were $3,000. That's a significant amount. That's almost 10% of his yearly salary, and that's just one game. If he's going, well, not him specifically, but if there are more than 35 games in 17 stadiums around the country, that's a lot of money to shell out. And one of them was the SEC championship game. Tickets like that, a game like that, I mean, you're spending for 2 tickets. It's probably easily $5,000 or $6,000, right? Maybe 10 at the high end
for the championship game. I mean,
like low level, right on the field. Yeah. But I mean, it's progressed at this point. So obviously you have that evidence. There has been stuff circulating, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. A clip from the first play of the game, Michigan Ohio State last year. CJ comes out, and it's you can see CJ in the foreground with Trey next to him and some of the linemen, and in the background you can see Jim, you can see Connor Stalions, you can see some of the other staff, and there's players there. And first play of the game, nothing has happened. No, adjustments should be made at this point because no one knows what anyone's going to do. CJ comes out, He looks at the defense. He doesn't like the play call.
Audible
So he calls an
comes in.
audible. He looks at the sideline. As soon as he looks at the sideline, the entire Michigan bench, all the players, the coaches, they all look to the Ohio State
Signal.
sideline. Ohio State signal callers and the sign guys give CJ the call. CJ looks back to the line. All of Michigan. It starts with Connor Stalions, and you can see him, tapping his head like, hey, it's a pass, it's a pass. Every player starts doing the same thing, and they're like pointing their fingers up in the air. It is the first play of the game. There is no way, there's no possible
If
explanation.
they were doing
to
it
know.
legally, there was
Exactly,
no way they would
yes.
have that information.
You had to have known beforehand that it would be a pass.
Yep.
And again, James Franklin's come out and talked about it. Kirby Smart's talked about it. James Franklin said there was a play where they were in like a zone run look where they run the ball like 97% of the time, and Michigan dropped like 8 guys into coverage, and he's like, who does that? That's not a thing that you do. You have 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends in the game. You're looking to run the ball. You might have 1 receiver out wide. Why are you dropping that many guys into coverage? That's suspicious. And other coaches have said the same thing. Like, it's not just like, oh, there's this one rumor of this one thing that happened. It's like, no, every day there's so many occurrences and so much evidence from so many places. And the fact that big coaches like that are talking about it, like, I think there's merit to the claims.
You could see the whole sheet that had all the signals.
Yeah, those for Ohio State and TCU, both games. There's a laminated sheet in this.
And on top of that, first off, that he was holding it in clear view of the camera. Second off, like, all of these purchases and transactions of a lot of the tickets were in their names. Like, you would think if they were like doing this, they would try to cover it up. It was in Connor Stalions' Venmo had like a lot of the transactions between because it wasn't always him going to the games, or
usually
not even most of the
would
time
send
he
someone.
didn't go. He would send other people to go.
But reportedly, what we're hearing is that immediately after the tickets were purchased, within most of the time, like 3 to 10 minutes, those tickets were transferred to someone else. So it's not like he was buying them with the intent to ever go to the game. He's sending them to people. And again, his Venmo was public. One of the people literally just sent him it was a clover leaf, like for the Notre Dame, like, okay, how much more obvious could you get? There's a bunch of them that say, what does it say, like, T-shirt fundraiser or something random. Like, oh man, it's not like you're not even trying to hide it, or you're not trying well, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just crazy. There's just stuff. I mean, we could talk about it for a couple hours with the amount of stuff that's come out about it. But I guess, like, speculating, I mean, it's hard to speculate, but if we had to speculate some sort of punishment, would it be one single punishment? Would it be multiple punishments? Is it going to be players, coaches, university, the team? Like, what do we think is going to happen as far as that goes?
I mean, I think in general, I think it's going to be for the team, which kind of, I mean, it sucks for the players because I think for the most part, a lot of the coaches will be let go or will move on to other teams or NFL. They probably get their wins taken away, which means, Ohio State hasn't lost to Michigan in so long.
Like 5,000 days.
Almost 5,000
Yeah.
days.
If that's
Urban Meyer tweeted about it
That
the
is
other day.
glorious.
If that's the case, and y'all think we won't take that, you don't know us very well. Ohio State fans will gladly take that.
Yeah, they took our wins away for the Golden Pants. Just saying.
Yeah.
Which was so much more just ridiculous.
Yes, wouldn't even be a thing.
Discounted tattoos.
Well, in
Come on.
the NIL world today, there wouldn't even be an issue with it, but
No.
that's another conversation.
Yeah, but they'll probably have their wins taken away, and there might be a bowl ban. There'll probably be a bowl ban. But in general, I think we're just curious to see if the wins get vacated and kind of what Michigan looks like going forward. Because I think in general, like us as Ohio State fans, the last 2 years have been rough. Obviously, like we lost the game 2 years in a row, and we were already like jacked for this game coming up this year. But honestly, we're still nervous about this game. Like Michigan looks really good as a team. I think this is the best team they've had. I really do. So that was scary to begin with, but now we're kind of at this point, like, Ohio State fans, I think we have new life. Like, we have an out for the last 2 years that's been presented to us in this scandal. Like, there's a possibility the last 2 years like are wiped away. And in a way, like, this year, it feels like if the game happens, which I think it will, this game almost feels like it's worth 3 in like a weird way. Like, it feels like if we beat Michigan this year, it's see, they can't beat us without cheating. We would have won. And regardless of that's actually true or not, because I'm not sure, even if you do know the other team's plays, if that accounts for a 15-point loss or a 22-point loss necessarily. That's going to be the perception, is, oh, wow, see, they can't beat us without cheating. And if that's the case and they do vacate the wins, I mean, Ohio State fans are all of a sudden going to have a new lease on life. And, wow, we got screwed 2 years ago. We would have gone the playoff over Cincinnati if we had beat Michigan that year. And which we would have, but that's a different conversation. So I think this year, like, this scandal has kind of given Ohio State fans kind of new hope that, hey, maybe we were better the last couple of years than what we thought.
Well, I think it's more than just players, or more than just. I guess I'm giving away what I was going to say. More than just fans too. I think players are like, we've seen DeJuan Jones talked about it. I'm trying to think of the other players. A couple of NFL guys are like, this is messed up. Like, you messed up my career essentially. That's a big thing for Ohio State players, is beating Michigan. Like, okay, playoff wins are cool. Yeah. National championships obviously are valued above everything else, but Michigan is right behind those natties.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's always 2 guys that never got their gold pants.
Exactly. Well, I think there's guys this year that look at that and they're like, man, I'm going to wreck some. Like, a guy like JT Tuimoloau, like, he's a freak of nature. If he has the right motivation, I think release him against Michigan. You know what I mean? And I don't think Ryan Day will go back either. If we get into a position, which I don't think this will happen. I think there's a very small chance, but it's not probable. If we get in a situation where we're up by like 30 in the fourth quarter, I don't think Ryan Day is pulling starters. I think it's going to be, hey, you deserve this. We're going to score as many points as we possibly can on you. And most years, I think that's true of Ohio State, Michigan anyway. But this year especially, there's an emotional aspect to it for everyone, not just fans.
I think there's only a few players that have gold pants on this current roster, because the last win was in 2019, because 2020 was COVID.
They dodged us because they couldn't scout us. So they dodged us.
Yeah, and then 2021 and 22.
Xavier Johnson's been there for like a decade now.
Yeah, there's a few that have. There are a few
Steel
that have
Chambers
some gold
has been there
pants.
for a while. I think he might have them.
Tommy might have a pair. Steele might have a pair.
Cody Simon's been. What is this? His
I'm
fourth
sure
year?
there's some scholarship or some non-scholarship guys that have been on the roster for 4 or 5
sure.
years. But like most, if you looked at our 22 starters,
Most of the starters, I bet there's only like 2 or 3 starters.
maybe like 3 on our whole starting roster that have a pair. Of
Steele
gold
and
pants.
Xavier, if you count Xavier. Well, Xavier's not really a starter. Special teams, I
He
guess.
was a walk-on, I think.
Yeah, he's the block O, so obviously he's an important player. But
Yeah, he's a great role player. But yeah, I mean that's huge. I mean, and as someone who has been an Ohio State fan for their entire life, like knowing that is the most important thing to them is to win that game, to get those gold pair of pants. Obviously, the national championship. We've had this conversation before, but like that's their goal every year, is to beat Michigan and then to get to the national championship after that, and like to have that opportunity tainted the last 2 seasons. I do think it's going to motivate them this year specifically. I think that's Ryan Day.
Ohio State
Ryan Day has
has
this beautiful fuel that has just been handed to him. Which, if he didn't already have enough, like, what a way to motivate your team. Like, the only reason they could beat us these last 2 years is because they were cheating, basically. And now they can go out, like, we have a chance to basically win, like Gage said, 3 games this year.
What an emotional year for Ohio State in general, though. Like, the whole Lou Holtz thing and the close Notre Dame win and the speech after the game and all the Michigan stuff coming out. And, like, Ryan Day hasn't won against Michigan yet as a head coach, right?
Once.
Did he win?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been.
He's won 1 and 2.
So it's building up to that. Is my point. I mean, we're playing 3 top 10 teams this year, and the Penn State game was very close. And going into the end of that game, like, it got a little sketchy towards the end. Like, just the up and down and the roller coaster of this year as far as our emotions go. It's honestly one of so far the most memorable ones in one of the most emotional ones in my memory. Because obviously you have years like 2014 when we won. Like obviously that's a year close to all of our hearts. But even if we lose 2 games, again, knock on wood, this year, like it's still going to be one that we remember for years to come with everything going on and just the craziness of it all.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good place to end the podcast. Thank you guys for listening in. Again, follow us on Twitter. We are at official Cap City. Shoot us questions on there. Interact with us. We'd be happy to talk to you guys. We post stuff all the day. We do post our rankings. We were talking about that. We try and push that through once a week. And it's a combination of power rankings, where we think teams are ranked based off resume. Injuries take effect on that as well. So be on the lookout for that. Let us know how we do. But thank you guys for listening in, and we will see you guys next time.